Hello, welcome to the. I just sprung that on you guys. Sorry. I'll warn you next time. Welcome to the very first stream for my channel. I'm Christopher Gray. This is an exciting time because we are going to join together and play a brand new game that nobody else has seen, well, except for one person at this table. Um, and it's something that's actually really personal to me because I've been working on this for several years, and this is kind of the culmination of a whole bunch of work. And I'm very excited to get out there. Very excited to have this cast with me, who on the very last minute in Discord said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." Uh, why don't we take a moment to introduce ourselves while I trim this window that shows my entire Zoom window? Lydia, do you want to start?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Lydia, half our Starmit on Twitter and socials. I am very happy to actually be a player in one of Chris's games. We had met each other a couple of months ago, I think, when I was deciding and fighting over and eventually being victorious about being able to GM the Great American Witch over and Weave the Tale. And I really, really enjoy the games that your wonderful mind produces. So we also played Happiest Apocalypse on Earth the other day on Colin's channel, and when you brought this concept to us, I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely here for it. I'm mostly a tour guide in Scotland, as you might hear from the accent. This is old world, old country, as you so nicely put it off screen earlier. But I've been living in TTRPG land online for the last year, the year that never was, and I'm quite happy with the escapism.
Awesome, thank you. Danny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, hi, I'm Danny, Danielle Lyle. I've known Chris for a while. We did Great American Witch. I did some stuff on that, and we've played together quite a few times, so I'm always excited for that. I write for role-playing games, and you can find me by my name, which you can see in the channel and on Twitter, and find me there. And I write role-playing games, and I'm excited. I'm excited. So I just am. I'm excited. I'm excited to role play. This looks like a great setting, so I'm excited.
Excellent, thank you. Actually, funny story, Danny. I knew about you through my wife, Kathleen Kaufman, who's an author, and your involvement in the Horror Writer Society. And the first time she saw you was when you were tackling the character sheet that George R. R. Martin was using in a werewolf game for the convention. And she's like, "Oh, my husband would like her."
And I got to play werewolf with George R. R. Martin, so that was fun. Yes.
Fun
You
story, good
murder
times.
him horribly as payback for everything he's done to us.
I did get to rip somebody's arms off, but it was not George R. R. Martin's character.
One day.
One day.
Okay, Rex, do you want to introduce yourself? We just met.
Yes, hi. I am Rex, he, him. I have done quite a few one-shots over on Colonomicon on Twitch, as well as Weave the Tale, which is where I met, Lydia and Spencer, played a lot of games with them, met you as well, saw you on saw your games on a couple places. I really like how they set up, so I'm super excited to try this. I'm relatively new to a lot of TTRPGs, and I think in the last year and a half, I've played so many different ones, and I'm addicted to it. So I'm really excited to be playing this with some new folks and some folks I've played with before. So yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And Spencer, last but not least.
Yeah. Hi. I am Spencer, or Spencer DVA on Twitter, Discord, etc. I know a couple of these people already. Like Rex said, I know both him and Lydia from Weave the Tale and Colonomicon. And yeah, when Chris proposed the premise of this game, I'm like, Viking era-ish stuff and magic, and we can be unicorns if we want to. Yeah, this sounds fun. So I decided to hop right on with this.
Yeah, so please don't argue about who can be the unicorn.
No promises.
We could be a herd of unicorns.
That's
whole
true.
unicorn party,
That's
yeah.
true.
We could be a herd of unicorns.
Yeah. You can have more than one unicorn. What am I saying? I don't need to add constraints. Inhibit your creativity.
One can be the last unicorn, the other one can be the robot unicorn attack. Like, there's a variety in unicorns. What's Lisa Frank unicorns? There's so many options.
When I put this out on Twitter that you could play unicorns in this game, Kimmy Hugh from Happy Jacks is actually making an entire game about unicorns. So check into Kimmy if you're a unicorn fan. Anyway, let's talk about my game. So there's been some inference already on what this is. This is just to zoom out as we find our footing here. This is session 0, so this is kind of casual. We can talk this through and decide how we want to play the game, what we're going to play. This game is meant to be my fantasy heartbreaker. This is a setting that has been invented and reinvented over the course of many years. It's been played in several systems. And the journey of the creation of Highcaster is very interesting. I think in general, and a lot of people that know me know I've been pounding away at this. So I think every designer needs a fantasy game. One of the things that I wanted to do was try to make a departure from the Tolkien style fantasy that we're used to, which I love, by the way. And I'm a big D&D player, and I like OSR, and there's a lot of that. I play in that world quite a bit. I've even written D&D modules, but I really wanted to step away from that for a lot of reasons. One, I mean, how many different versions of elves do we need? How many times are we going to tell the same story in the basic setting? And so I kind of lean back into history some more because I'm a big history fan. I've kind of as a hobby studied history for many years, and so what I wanted to do was sort of just borrow from history and bring kind of like what speaking of George R.R. Martin, sort of what he did with Game of Thrones and the Song of Ice and Fire, is kind of bring some historical elements into a fantasy setting, and then play from that point of view. And so. So while yes, I heard like Viking era coming, kind of what I'm trying to do is do what was happening, in Britannia before the Vikings hit, but not use Britannia, and so we're just gonna have our own world.
It's not like we know anyway. Thanks, Christians.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's going to be like if you were to pick a historical era, that's where I'm borrowing from in terms of what was going on. But very little else is there. We're not playing Anglo-Saxons. We're not playing, in Britain. We're playing in a world of our own creation. One of the design goals of Highcaster is that you make your Highcaster. So there's very little in the game about, history and lore. And like when you read Forgotten Realms, you have to get like a graduate's degree in history just to follow along with all of the things that have happened in Forgotten Realms, and there's a whole wiki devoted to it. And I wanted to get the cost of entry to be very low so that don't have to know anything except about your character and the culture that they're in, and that's really all you need to know. And then everything else you create at the table. So you're going to create your own world, your own history. I mean, there's no map. There's some loose geographical explanations, but there's no map. There are some major cities, but not many. And so the way this works is the shared history of the world is that all of the gods literally fell from the sky because they were stars, and something happened. This happened like 500 years ago, so nobody really knows exactly what happened. They just know that centuries ago there were these things called stars, and they were gods, and they fell from the sky and destroyed everything. And that means then we are in a world without stars. You have no heavenly bodies. There's a sun, there's a moon. There are no stars. Those were gods, and they're dead. It also means there are no other realms. There's no way for you to pass on when you die. In the old days, the chroniclers say that there were gods that would show you the way through the stars to go find your end, or maybe you would ascend and become a star yourself. But no more. Now, when you go, you sort of just have to hang around and linger, and your spirit might one day kind of dissolve into the rest of spiritualness. Or it might roam, or it might replay things over and over again. So there's a real big ghost problem in Highcaster. There's something that needs to be resolved. There's nowhere for anybody to go. And a lot of these spirits get sort of corralled and drawn into certain areas. So the other thing to know about this is that because there are no stars, there are no ways to navigate. So there used to be, bold seafaring people, but if you don't have any stars, you can't really seafare very far before you get lost in the darkness. So there are seafaring people in Highcaster, but they stay closer to the coasts. And this is drawn from history when we started getting some of the activities of getting to the very far island and how people got there. Had to get there very carefully and follow the coasts and things like that. So that's sort of where we are. We're very, very dark ages. There isn't a lot of travel. There isn't a lot of communication. There isn't a lot of major sprawling kingdoms. These are all very sparsely populated communities that are trying their best to stay protected in their little silos. But some people do break out, and there is trade, and they know about each other. But you really have to be somebody special to ever make that journey. And so that's kind of where we are in formulating the society. The reason it's that way is because it's cool, A, and B, that gives us the chance to create our own world. So we don't have to put, this city is on that coast, this city is on that, and in these mountains. We know that there are mountains. We can kind of know where they are, but we don't know anything about them because we haven't really been there. Nobody in our world has, and you might go through wilderness and just stumble upon an entire kingdom and you didn't know it was there, because, you don't go into the wilderness. I do want to talk about that for a second. The wilderness is interesting because there is no, the wilderness is bad for a lot of reasons, but also because of the corruption. What happened was when the stars fell, they created what are called god shards, which are the remnants of the gods in the earth. And that has been corrupting the earth over time. And that creates all kinds of monsters and horrible things. And so when you're going into the wilderness, you don't know what you're going to come into. You might come upon an area that's been corrupted, and you might come upon monsters or beasts or who knows what that is completely. It's not even of another world. It's just been a perversion of this world, and so there's a lot of horrifying elements that are out there. It's one of the reasons everybody has stayed in their villages. So that's kind of where we are. The characters you're playing are the few that actually leave, and you have to for various reasons. You might need to bring something important back to your home, or you might need to go and forge a trade route with some other settlement or civilization that you come upon, or you might need to go and find out what's in the woods that's threatening where you live. But these are all sort of reasons that you need to protect your home. So the goal of this game isn't to go and conquer other worlds. The goal of this game is to make your world safe. And that's the big difference, I think, between this and most of the other fantasy games. So by default, you are people of legend. Nobody leaves their homes. You are heroes. You have to be able to take this path to do what you're doing as adventurers. And so you will have a reputation. And when you go into other lands, let's say you walk into some random village, the entire village is going to shut down and watch you come in. So there's no I'm going to buy some meat or an ale. It's no, we're going to throw a feast because you arrived. And it's that kind of epic sort of tone and tonality for your characters. This is the opposite of grid. This is, these are legends that we're building. And these are the stories that are going to be told in this civilization for hundreds of years. When the chroniclers are writing about you 1,000 years from now, they're going to talk about that thing that you did. So that's what we're after, and that's what the design of Highcaster is all about. One element I do need to mention that I completely forgot, which is important, is that when the stars fell, it destroyed a continental civilization. There was once an empire called the Highcaster Empire, and that was completely and totally obliterated. And so you will find all of these ruins and stuff from the old empire. And there are remnants of that empire that still live out there. They call themselves the Hidoni. But the empire itself is completely and totally gone. But that's why there is some unifying culture and language, because there was once a massive empire. That was 500 years ago. So nobody really knows much about it except that it existed. So that's where we are. I could go on and on about Highcaster, but maybe I should pause for a moment and let me hear from you about your thoughts around that, or if you had any questions.
When you say that it's very unusual that people leave, I'm assuming there are still stories about heroes, about people who have traveled. Is it generally considered heroic, like you said, feast? So I'm assuming it's a positive thing, but I also know that in the setting there's the idea of an outcast, kind of. So you would have various options in terms of backstory, what made the person leave in the first place. The one thing I'm always a little bit unsure about is when there's no lore or not much lore, because we don't know who the gods really were and stuff, some such. It's how to best, because you want to make up lore, right? You want to make up your own stories. That's what we do.
Sure.
How to best stay within those ideas of we just don't know, Dark Ages, and still create your own thing. I think I like the idea of someone outcast, someone actually punished to leave. And I'm guessing that can be different from culture to culture as well.
Yeah, all that's very possible. And one of the points of design is that there's sort of an open canvas here. So what is defined in the game very well are the cultures. And so you might have, you might have a lot to say about a particular culture, and maybe the culture cast you out for cultural reasons. So you ended up with another culture. That does happen. It happens a lot. And when I say it's rare, it's sort of, it's not like nobody leaves and goes to places, but it is a big deal, to get to, even let's say if you're in a pretty settled area, it's going to take several weeks for you to get anywhere, and it's going to be dangerous. So you have to make a very strong commitment that you're going to go and do that. And those that just sort of live on the road, so to speak, that's really unusual. There are also cultures that have strong trade networks, and they've kind of devised ways to safely transport trade. And then there's cultures that just live on boats. Like when we hear about they're called the Saybeards, and we call them Seabeards. They're essentially Vikings, but you don't have to be. But they live they live on the coast, and they're very transient. So it all depends on the culture. And yes, outcasts are a thing. And in the game, you can play somebody that is outcast within their own culture, and so are working for whatever reasons to subvert the culture because what they're doing isn't right in their view. Or you can play somebody that has been outcast and is in a new culture. And both are doable, and both of them have names. So when you go into the cultures, you'll find that certain people will be called certain things based on what happened to them, or what their background is. So yeah, that's all doable. And there's no breaking the lore because there really isn't any lore, as long as you're using the guardrails of the cultures. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
So you said that there are, I know with like Wildkin, for example, that they're kind of nomadic to a degree. I imagine that might be, is that like nomadic within their known region, like the areas they know are safe? So Wildkin aren't necessarily the travelers like, the heroes are, because they're just nomadic within their own areas.
Yeah, that's about right. And there are some cultures that are entirely like pastoral, like Burnt are pastoral, is a pastoral culture just because of the region that they live in. And if you are in a very civilized culture, let's say like Hidoni, and you're wildkin, then that means that you are probably on the borders of the kingdoms there, doing your thing, and that you might come in occasionally, but yeah, you're more comfortable outside of outside of civilization, because wildkin is a path about balancing what's happening with what humans are building versus what nature needs. And that takes different forms in different cultures. Good question. You've done your research. You've done your homework. Cool. Any other questions about the overall setting? There is a lot in there on the setting. You could go on and on about it, and all the different possibilities with the different cultures and how they interact.
Yeah, that's what I've been looking at. Actually, I mean, I've been listening, but I've also been kind of looking through. The art is really good, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It's actually holding place art by and large, and I don't know yet what the final art's going to look like. But we can. I'm going to switch over to so the anybody that's watching this can see the game. The rest of you, if you just want to look at the PDFs I provided. The first thing that we need to decide is what your culture is. So I just like to walk through them as I find my way through the book here. And normally in my games, we would be able to create cultures from scratch, but in this game, it's pretty structured. We have to choose one of them. The cultures will also kind of dictate the kind of game we're going to have. So I'll just go through them real quick. It's going to be hard for me not to draw parallels into human history, so I'll avoid doing that. But one of the things I did in our original playtest is I said, well, this culture is like such and such, which completely obliterated, one of the players' idea of what that could be. So I'm going to try to keep it as historically agnostic as I can, but you can draw some pretty obvious parallels. First one I want to talk about is Hidoni. This is probably the most, normal feeling culture that you would find in a fantasy game. They are the remnants of the Highcaster Empire. They've kind of kept up the empire. They call it an empire, even though it's more of a group of like small villages and hamlets with a large city. And that is, and they still kind of keep all of the old imperial ways. They are, very structured, very ordered, that kind of thing. The Burnt are from Burntwood Downs, and they are a pastoral group. So they are in a bunch of different clans. The Burnt pretty much go through the seasons throughout their entire region, and they end up in semi-permanent settlements to do all of their trading. So there are times in the year where they are, kind of in a city, but most of the time they're passing through their highland kind of sort of steppe region as they're moving all of their cattle and wares through. The Rishan are merchant folk, and they have really big cities on the coast, and they do a lot of the trade that you'll see. Like, you'll probably, no matter what culture you're in, you will know Rishan because they're the ones that are most widespread. They kept a lot of their stuff intact since the Cataclysm. The Wormguard are just a whole host of monarchies all up in the mountains, always fighting over territory. Real gnarly bunch. The Stairborn are sort of this really long-lived culture that's been around probably longer than anybody else, and they kept themselves pretty safe and stable throughout all of that time. They are in the forests of Highcaster. They have, in fact, their entire their big city is built on this massive tree called the Storm. The Seabeards are migratory raiders that go along the coast and along the rivers, and the Direwish are it says here seafaring, but they're river faring really. They're in the Riverlands, and they are kind of like, they consider themselves like the cultural peak. So they're all interested in things like history and philosophy and etc. So I did my best not referring to any cultures. So those are our choices. I will let you discuss because this has to be unanimous. Everybody's going to be playing in the same culture. Now, you might have been from another culture, and you are now in this one, but you're all in the same culture.
My interest is peaked as the Sturborn, the big tree.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. That's my first foray into a suggestion.
I hadn't quite clocked that the storm was the big tree, so when my ears did go, oh, when I heard it.
It's called that because, according to Sturborn legend, there is a massive storm that comes from that tree every few thousand years that just destroys the entire world. It hasn't happened in recorded history, but they insist that it has.
It kind of reminds me if you play WoW and you play a night elf, you're in that big tree at the beginning. Anyway,
and I don't want to call.
That sounded cool.
I don't want to call anybody religiously weird, but the Sturborn are religiously weird. They believe that their monarch, called the Kimka, is reincarnated into the next form and has kept the consciousness and memory with each form. So if you kind of think of them sort of like, always you're born into the monarchy, and then when it's your time, you take on all of the memories of the prior monarch and the identity. And they also believe that is true for everybody. And so that means then that until somebody dies in your family, you can't really rise to adulthood. And it is a sort of weird cultural phenomenon that drives a lot of people out of the region because they don't want to have to deal with any of that.
Hurry up, Grandma, and dies.
Exactly.
Adult. Hurry up, Grandma.
Now, please.
You're like 150. I'm 50 years old. I'm tired of this.
Yeah, I think I'm really leaning into the Sturborn as well. Either the Sturborn or Saybirds, because I just like the idea of like seafaring raiders.
Everybody likes that idea.
Everyone loves a good pirate.
Pirate games are always fun.
I'm here for Sturborn because that really works well with the sort of very loose character concept of someone who's interested in the soul lore in particular, and the whole idea of souls bearing power, not able to leave the world. That goes quite well with the religiously weird ideas of that culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down for that too. I think it works well with the general character concept I have, and I think that religion would contrast very interestingly with what I have, not in a bad way, but just in an interesting way. So I'm down for Sturborn, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Apparently, it means born of the stars.
Yeah. There is some language. I mean, these words all do have meaning. Interesting design note. I went through. I feel a little Tolkien-ish here. I mean, I didn't go that far, but I went through the Proto-Indo-European language and tried to work on words that would feel like real words to us English speakers, but then have their own specific meaning. So, yeah, it means they're born of the stars. And that means, that they claim descendancy directly from the gods.
I was wondering if there was a lot, because mostly I can see Germanic influences, of course, because that's my native language. But star is Stern and born is geboren, so Sturborn, it works quite well. Like, how much German did you?
Well, I rolled the Proto-Indo-European feeds both German and English, so we should find a lot of good common words. Hopefully. It's actually way more German and English than anything else. Cool. So the Sturborn, that is interesting. I'm looking forward to that. That should mean we could go all kinds of different directions. They call themselves Khem, Khem, sort of their native tongue, but they do accept the sort of high-speak version of their words. Uh-oh. Bots. What does that mean? Great. I already have bots on my channel. This is the first stream.
Yeah, you want to delete those.
So anyway, where was I? Right. So we were talking about the Kim. So there is a lot of information about this particular culture, which we can dive into. But the purpose of our session 0 is to start filling out our character sheets and get some things figured out. Now, I put character sheets into the drive. I don't really have any available to show on the stream yet, but I will in future sessions. But there are certain things that the culture is going to tell us. Why don't we talk a little bit about them? So the monarch is called the Kimka, which translates to spirit of the people. And that is a monarch with absolute power. They also have a whole bunch of people that carry out all their wishes. We would call them magistrates, maybe, or senators or congressmen or whatever. You know, they sort of the government are actual servants of the Kimka, and they call the Himka, which means spirit laborers. And they are, you know, they make up all of the bureaucracy and military. We've talked a little bit about their religion. They are actually very simplistic in their lifestyle. Hey, Angus, that's our dog, Angus. He has opinions. I'm thinking maybe there's a golden retriever outside or something. But anyway, so they have pretty simple lives, but they live in opulent ways. In other words, since the Kimka has absolute power, the Kimka does things like build massive monuments and huge structures and gorgeous cities. Like if anybody were to come into a Stairborn city, they would be floored at the majesty. And it's all built within the forest. So it's built in and on around the trees, inside of trees. It's also kind of built within and concurrent with nature. This is not one of these bulldoze and build a palace kinds of people, but they do not spare expense. It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you could probably think of it something like Rivendell, you know, where it's really just opulent, but still within the nature. But the individual person probably doesn't have a palace. They're likely working to make these palaces, or they are, tending to the crops, or they're hunting, or they're bringing all of the resources that the community needs to survive. And so that most everybody is in that role. Since you're playing heroes, you will probably be working directly with the Kimka on doing very important missions for society. So the first thing that you'll need to do is decide what your additional language is. You'll speak the native language, which is Ba Kim. Everything's about Kim. And that's because Kim is really talking about the world. They just view themselves as the world and everything in it. So I guess before you decide your language, we should probably decide as a group, knowing what we know about this, is there another culture nearby that maybe we should consider neighbors? And if so, we can decide that as a group, just because it might help you decide what language you want, but it also might help form your characters a little more. The answer could be no. There is no culture nearby.
I mean, I'm fine with no culture nearby, but we can definitely have one.
Would be interesting to have a secluded kingdom, if you will, or a secluded culture that will then have to kind of face a...
We're really babes in the woods, like,
Yeah.
What is...
not knowing what's ahead, not knowing where we're going and what we're doing and who all these people are that we are encountering that are so very different.
I mean, maybe instead of having a culture nearby, the only culture that we have contact with are the, the Rishin? The traders, and maybe what we know of the outside world is just through them. if anything. I imagine there would be probably bureaucrats and people that deal directly with them. So like the average person might not all that much, but I do like the idea that maybe there is some small sliver of outside contact that's just enough to pique the curiosity of adventurers or people that want to leave the culture, but otherwise we're very isolated.
And then that kind of setup, it would be a major expedition to do trade. So maybe there is a Rishan settlement that you can get to, but that, the Kimka organizes an expedition in order to do that. And in that case, the second language is probably Highspeak. Highspeak is the leftover from the Empire. And probably the Rishan require it in order to handle trade. So that extra language, I don't see any reason why you would have a language other than that. And that's simply for trade. So you know how to say 5 apples, please. Because the Rishan have apples and you cannot get apples. That's probably not true. You probably have apples.
Maybe citrus fruits, more coastal
Citrus
things.
fruits, yes. they have oranges, and you cannot get oranges anywhere in Chem.
First lore, proper lore background. No oranges and
Yeah.
No.
See, we constantly live in fear of scurvy.
They call it the Great Flight, and they think
That's
it's a
our
curse.
big expedition.
I'm impressed you
is-
somehow managed to bring pirates in after all.
Yes. How do you deal with this?
I will always find a way.
So the next thing to pick are your cultural talents. I'm going to give you a little bit about the game rules. I guess I should probably tell more about the game as we get into some of these mechanics. This game is based on a dice pool system, but it's actually a modifier dice pool. In other words, we're going to be rolling d20 for everything, like we would in your any normal Fantasy Heartbreaker game. But the modifier is going to be rolled in a pool of dice, and you decide you decide what you add to the pool based on what you're doing, and the highest number becomes your modifier. So you want to be able to add as many to that modifier pool as you can. Talents give you a d6 to that pool, so you can when you can apply your talent to the situation, you can add to your modifier pool, and that's what this is for. So you need to decide based on your culture which talent you want. There's the one that's you are a native of the region, so you know your way around very well. I mean, generally everybody kind of knows their way around, but you really know your way around. You're good at confronting threats in a forest would be another talent, or because of the culture's long history, you can get a talent die when using lore or history to confront something. So you just need to pick one for yourself.
I think for what I have planned, I think I'm going to take long history. So yeah, that'll be mine.
We'll double up inevitably. But yeah, I was thinking double long history as well. The idea being, what happens to souls when there are no descendants? Who is gobbling them up? I think she's gonna be a scholar of sorts who has kind of tunnel visioned onto that question, and the long history part resembles the scholarly background, kind of. Or maybe not even scholar, but just the knowledge-based one. I think Wicca works as well with that. That's later.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's a good question. What does happen?
I'm thinking native of the storm. I feel like my So we'll come back to that. I'm torn between forest warrior, native of the storm.
I was thinking doing native of the storm. I don't know if that helps make your decision or not, but that's what I was planning.
Yeah. I can do forest warriors. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I like that.
I mean, no reason you couldn't do, but sometimes people like to, oh, if you're doing that, I'll do something else.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I don't mind doubling up either. But I'm 50-50 on those two, and forest warrior actually fits pretty well, so I think I'll take that one.
This is the TTRPG version of, oh, if you're ordering that cocktail, then I'm taking the other one so we can all have a taste.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, we're supposed to be testing this out, so we should have
We should.
at least one of each,
The next thing you'll need to decide is your trade. So this is sort of what your skills are. This isn't what you do for a living. What you do for a living is serve your people. But you might be a worker, which means a lot of people in the storm area are workers. You might be a bureaucrat. There's a lot of those too. That's a misspelling. So I didn't even proof this. But there's a reverend, which means you have a position of spiritual power. And if you pick that trade, you actually get some hirelings that you can use. The other two give you talent die. No, I did that right. It's revered. Okay, I was thinking it was supposed to be reverend. Reverend is something else in the game. I'm confusing myself already.
I'm trying to think of what would fit better for the path that I have taken. Because for my path, I chose Magister. So I'm trying to figure out if Bureaucrat or Revered would be a better one to use.
They both would apply.
Yeah. I think I'll take Bureaucrat for mine.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take worker. I think that fits my character a little bit better.
Take worker as well.
And I'm gonna take Revered.
You do like your hirelings, your minions.
Listen, it's not my fault that they're just all applying.
They just follow me around.
I'm kind of. Yeah. There's a lot of concepts that this could work for. We'll see what happens with the other talents, where we're going with this character.
I think I might be out of step on the character creation, but at some point you'll need to decide your humors, which are your stats, your main stats. The stats on your character sheet just have dice, and that is because your humors are added to your modifier dice pool. So the first stat is going to be you want to pick the thing that you are best at. And their choices are not in front of me, and so I've suddenly forgotten them. We have virtue, which is your ability to, have a moral compass, essentially. It's your ethical stat. Virtue is overrated. Prestige is on there too. Prestige is sort of your social clout and standing. And courage is your ability to act. So they're very vague on purpose because they're supposed to apply for many different situations. But you can see there's a list of moves that they all plug into, and those are the moves that you're going to use to confront threats. So if you want to do things like make a moral stand, then you'll probably want to have a higher virtue. But if you want to do things like strike, you're probably going to want to have a higher courage. If you want to do things like, intimidate someone, you're probably going to have a higher prestige.
Mm-hmm.
So pick the one you want to be highest. That gets a D8. The one that you want to be lowest gets a D4, which means that the other one gets a D6. Just decide which dice goes with which humor.
I'm such a cliche, but here we go.
I guess I need clarification questions.
Sure.
And for like magic casting, would courage fall under like magic to like harm or protect others?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I put it. Yeah, it's not what you're doing, but why.
Gotcha.
So if you're using your magic to influence people, then you'll probably want it in prestige.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay.
If
Okay,
you're
yeah,
using
then
your magic to hurt or help people, you'll want to encourage.
Okay, cool. Then I think I actually have my dice exactly where I want them, so I'm all set.
Cool. Glad to
Yeah,
hear
go for
that the form
prestige.
fillable sheet is working.
Yes.
Oh,
It
I
is.
don't actually have that one just yet.
Oh.
I didn't see it.
Oh, it should be in the drive. Sorry, I assumed.
No, good.
Let me see if I can.
I did courage, then virtue, then prestige. My character does not have a lot of social standing.
For mine, I did courage, prestige, then virtue.
Not a huge moral compass.
Nah. I think it's
Are
how I have the backstory sort of planned out here.
we a low virtue group? What's gonna happen?
Are-
No, D4.
are we-
You know, you can still roll a 4.
Yeah. We're
I mean,
we're
I'm
the
here for
chaotic
it. This is
stupid
not-
group. Is this what we are? Are we the chaotic stupid group?
I'm still figuring out my dice, but yeah, saying that my character is a forest warrior and a worker and my other traits, I think courage is probably going to end up being my DA.
Nice.
We're all gonna be terrible people.
Well, virtue is going to probably be the D6, so I think that's what I'm figuring out here.
So that means Rex's character is the moral compass. This is how it works.
So all of our horrible decisions ultimately will be your responsibility because
And your fault.
we
If
can't be
burn
held
down a
responsible
town-
for it.
If we burn down a town, it's Rex's fault because they keep us in check.
Well, you know, I have things to say about that, but I'm gonna hold on to them because I don't want to reveal too much. But I will remember everything that you do. So
Taking notes. Okay, cool. Well, the other thing we need to figure out, which is one of the most important things, is your heritage. It's important in a cosmetic way. There really are a whole lot of mechanical benefits to picking one heritage over another. If you recall, in history, there was a continental empire that was really sort of a melting pot, and so there wasn't really much division between heritages. And when it fell, everybody sort of stayed where they were. So you'll have any number of heritages in any number of cultures. So there really is no limit to what you play. And there's really no cultural benefit to playing anything. So we'll go through them real quick. I think you've already looked at them, but just for the benefit of the people watching. There is Elfin, which is, yes, elf. They are the mortal descendants of the nature cosmos. So I'm not going to get too much into the cosmology because it'll just confuse things. But nature has a spirituality, and the Elfin came from that. So Elfin are actually more what we would consider sort of the natural fae from our lore, but they take forms of, like, you know, trees or creatures like that, and they're very of the natural. Now, when I say nature, I mean more like plants, flora, fauna kind of nature.
So they're almost kind of more dryads than they are elves.
Thank
almost.
you. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah.
Beds don't.
What? Oh, great! Now I know what she's bringing up. I'm not gonna.
So, like, some of their forms might look like moving plants, vines, or they may even look like insects. And they take on different forms like that. So you can choose between looking like a tree, looking like a small creature, hybrid, insect, that kind of thing. The beast person they were actually created with the cataclysm, which are beasts and people basically fused together because of the cataclysm, and then had kids. So we have a whole heritage of animal people, and you can really be any kind of animal. There is the Draken, which are descendants from dragons. So that's pretty self-explanatory. You look like you're a dragon folk type. The angels are angels. They are descended from celestials. Now, here's what happened: the cosmos collapsed along with everything else. So these were angels, but then they became mortal because now we don't have the heavens or the hells or anything else. And then as mortals, they had kids and descendants and etc. So you do have angels and demons, but they're no longer the cosmological powers of angels and demons that were there before. The demons are called fiends. So you could play a fiend. There is also a Hulton heritage, which is descended from the nature, but in the sort of like from the world kind of way, as opposed to some of the plants and animals we're talking about, earth and rock. So they're essentially like rock biter from Neverending Story. I know everybody got that reference.
Yeah.
Yes, they look like big, strong hands.
Oh, that was always so fucking
I know.
sad.
So
I
sad
know.
for
So
sad
sad.
for
Oh
him.
my god.
That was
This
the sad moment. Obviously, if you can tell me that you watched Artix dying without shedding a tear, you're a monster, and
Yeah.
that is not up
Right.
for discussion. And I always had to hide under the blanket when he jumps through the first oracle, the laser one.
Mm-hmm.
Even after like watching it for 20 times, nope, couldn't see, couldn't.
Terrifying. It's terrifying.
I have an Orin tattoo.
Oh, you do? I didn't know that.
I do. I actually also have a replica Orin, like a pewter one, and I have like a stuffed Falcor. That was like my movie when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But,
See,
We-
now that we're here, I have to bring this up now because I had to confess last night that I've never seen The Last Unicorn.
so you're gonna confess
you've
you've never
also
seen
not
the
seen-
I've
Neverending
also
Story?
never seen the Never-Ending Story.
Oh my god.
Okay, watch party and Colonomicon server. We have to educate you, Spence, on several
Need to
things.
get me.
I'm in
called-
the same boat. You're Spence. You're not alone.
Yeah.
I'm being an uncultured swine.
Okay, between the two of you, I'm not judging you, but I'm judging you.
I'm judging you.
I mean, it's
I'm-
honestly
Fair.
completely fair. It's completely fair.
You can
The,
say that
um,
Michael ended what you want, but his stories are fantastic, and yeah, Neverending Story Momo is another wonderful, wonderful story that I will literally give people whether they want to or not. It's
Yeah.
so good.
I'll do that with Crawl, so I get it.
It was,
I love Crawl.
it was the
People
kind of
love
movie you needed when you were a book nerd as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
The
Actually,
rock
that
biter
makes-
also made the rocks actually look kind of like I remember that actually looks a little good. Like I could eat that rock.
Yeah, like
It looked really tasty
tasty
and crunchy.
rock. Yeah, quartz would be tasty. He was describing it like with just a hint of quartz. Delicious. That's a gourmet rock. Like yeah, okay, gourmet rock.
Yeah,
Great,
I like
great.
quartz too.
Yeah,
I bet it tastes like
gourmet,
sugar.
gourmet. Yeah,
Uh,
the next tattoo I want is like I have the Orin on my leg, and it's just that. It was the first tattoo I got, but I want to get Falcor incorporated into it coming out my leg. Because who doesn't want Falcor?
That's awesome.
Our first dog eventually ended up looking like a black version of Falcor.
Oh,
Nice.
so cute.
So we called him, well, Fuhua, because German, but we called him that on the record.
And you're going through. See, you mentioned Neverending Story, so
It's all over. It's all over.
Your fault.
The game's
Your-
done.
Your fault.
Alright,
The
heritage.
Neblon are what we would more consider fairies. They are creatures from the horizon, which is that space between reality and spirituality. Spirituality does still exist. There are still spirits, but there are no realms for them to go to. We also have the Equine, which is unicorns. Those are the unicorns. And yes, they can talk. And then the Vivarin, I guess if you want to play a human, whatever.
Boring humans.
Tell us how you really feel, Chris.
Man, it's gonna feel real bad when I talk about how I wanted to play Vivaren.
If I should disclose, whenever I'm on an MMO, I always play humans. I really can't relate psychologically to anything else.
Well, I'm gonna do mine random. actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get what I get. I'm gonna roll a d10, and there's 9 of them. So if I roll a 10, I'll just re-roll, but starting at the top will be
Roll a
1.
10, you explode. I don't make the rules.
I don't make the rules. I don't play anymore. Like, bye, everybody. All right, let's see what I get here. I got 9. So I'm going to be a descendant of the demigods.
You are Vivarin.
Vivarin.
Or you are, Vivarin is plural.
Vivarin.
So you're a viewer.
A Vivarin.
Not to be confused with beaver.
That's beast folk.
I'm dumb. I rolled the wrong die.
Roll again.
All right. I'm going to roll the actual appropriate die. Actually. So I probably won't be a Vivarin. Maybe I will still. Who knows? Oh, okay. This time I got an 8. So,
Ooh,
Gwen,
that's the unicorn.
That's the unicorn.
Yay, we have a unicorn in the party. I'm happy.
Nice.
Someone else go. I'm still indecisive.
I mean, I know what I picked, so I can talk about them.
Yes.
I am going to be a Holt. The stone people that are really, 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 really old. I really liked this background because I felt like it could fit in so many different places. I mean, everything is very modular with character creations. There's not really any, you can't be something if you're something else. But I really like their kind of live in the moment. The way their memory works.
Do you want to go
feel
into
like
more detail on that? So I don't know that the audience knows what you're talking about yet.
yes, let me scroll up to
Or I
Holt real
can.
quick because I am in the PDF somewhere else. So
They're one of the first, they're the only creatures really that still has immortality.
You're gonna live forever.
Here we go. So one, I really liked their aesthetic. Just being a rock person was really cool, kind of like a golem, I suppose. But their long existence, like they don't dwell in their memories or in potentials. They're very in the moment. And when they do make memories, they're stored. The way I kind of picture it in like a modern way is they store it on a different hard drive. It's there, it's accessible, but it's not in the forefront of their mind. They have to kind of go into a meditation to pull up their memories as references. So I really like the idea of playing a character that is really old, that maybe has knowledge of how things were before the fall, but doesn't really access that or care. I also like the idea that my Holt, while is Sturborn, which again, I might be mispronouncing that correctly, could very well have been in other cultures as with their memories and things like that, but just in the moment lives in the Sturborn society.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Also, I've been saying Stairborn, which I don't know if it's the right way to pronounce them because they're made up words. So, but the Stairborn is also a very, very old culture. So you could have been in there all along, but you don't necessarily need to have been. Cool. Anybody else deciding?
You go, Spence.
Oh, sorry. I'm just going kind of vanilla here. I'm playing a Viver. Because I'm like descendant of demigods. That seems cool. Although the way I have a little bit of a backstory idea-ish is that it wouldn't be entirely true with this individual, but that's okay. So yeah, I think I'm gonna be the plain Jane human of this party.
All right, so we have a Viver, we have a Equin, we have Equi, I guess. I gotta use the singular form. A Holt.
And I am going for the Beast Cursed.
Nice.
Best Cursian.
Yeah.
Best Cursian.
You could use the common vernacular if you like.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going for. But the Beast Cursed also fits quite well with my idea, considering that it's the whole idea of a spirit, a human soul, human spirit having fused with that of a beast at some point. So that would fuel her whole why question quite well, because it affects her personally in a way. And if we talk about the culture itself and how Beast Cursed are viewed, I don't necessarily want to put in any form of those classic fantasy pseudo racism angles. Thank you, no thank you. But I do think in a culture that talks about souls and about spirits the way that the Kem do, the whole idea of fusing with an animal spirit could be seen as something different. Whether it's good or bad or what that means, we'll figure out. But I think that works quite well as a motivation for her. So Beast Cursed, and am I gonna go with Fly or Claws and Teeth? I want to Fly.
Yeah.
We have
Fly.
I have all the werewolves in Great American Witch. I think I'm gonna go with Fly here. They made me put in so many werewolves.
Great American Werewolf.
Anyway, that's my personal trauma.
Okay. Yeah, go through your look and decide. I think that some of those hands conversions are wrong, so I wouldn't use that as gospel. I need to go back and check those, but in general, I'm trying to get away from feet and beaters. So there's a small, medium, and large option for every heritage. And so yeah, look at there should be a look. There's going to be about 3 different qualities under your look that you can choose from. And then there are going to be 3 abilities that you can choose from. And that's really all that you get out of your heritage. So go ahead and make those decisions. And as you do, let us know what they are.
I already did. I was doing that while she was talking about her cool beast. When I played this before, I was a parrot, basically. I was a beast as well, and I was a parrot, and I had feathers for hair, and I could fly, but they were like multicolored, like a parrot and stuff like that. So I understand the wanting to fly, because who doesn't, right?
And you live in trees.
Yeah. And my equine is tall, so a big equine. A black hide with white dapples, like on the hindquarters, and white hair and tail. So white mane and tail, but black hide and silver eyes.
Wow.
Pretty awesome looking.
And did you choose an ability?
Telekinetic.
Yeah.
So my equine can move things with their mind.
You can also use weapons that way. There's on one of the paths, there's an archery ability, and I was thinking, what about the equine? Oh, telekinesis.
Using a bow via telekinesis.
The idea that a unicorn can move things with their mind is simultaneously fantastic and terrifying at the same time.
They did that at My Little Pony. If y'all ever watch My Little Pony, like the unicorns would do that. Like that's their.
I mean, if you have 4 hooves, you're quadrupedal. That's very useful.
Weapons, just
sipping tea. There's just a teacup.
just hovering there. Just yeah.
I've been trying very hard not to tour guide at all of yous. But there's a reason the Scots chose the unicorn as their national animal. Because it's the only, it is in mythology and heraldry, it's the most powerful beast, the only one to defeat the lion, not with pure strength, but with cunning and wisdom. Because freedom.
Woo!
But also, it was National Unicorn Day 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
Nice.
So it's appropriate.
So it's super appropriate. Unicorn can
rolled
do
a
whatever a unicorn sets its mind to. Don't need no man.
No need no man.
One places.
Loveliest of all was the unicorn.
And I have a stabbing weapon attached.
Beautiful.
Okay, who's next on their heritage?
I'll go. Sure. I have, my character is average height, so I think it said about 15 hands. I think is what it said in the heritage thing. They have lavender skin because, full disclosure, lavender is one of my favorite colors. I love that color. Golden eyes and black hair. So that is what my fine Viver Magister is going to be looking like for this adventure.
Yeah, there's lots of skin hues you can choose from. And
We
eye
look
colors.
cool together, but you can't ride me.
I mean, that's fair.
We look cool together.
There will be so many stupid writing jokes, and I'm here for all of them.
We'll have to have a LOTR moment, like, okay, you can ride me, but don't tell anybody.
Don't tell the Holt.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of phrasing jokes in this group now.
Oh God. I'll go next.
Please.
So as a Holt, my character is. They are. Well, their pronouns are they, them. You know, they're not gendered. But they are bipedal. They have dark, kind of grayish brown stone as their form, but it's mixed with crystals. So they're very, kind of dark gray brown stone mixed with crystals, kind of dotted throughout their skin. Their, what you call skin is actually very smooth. It's not rough. They keep it very smooth. And their eyes are, one of their eyes is pink and the other is silver, as if they have like a pink crystal in one eye and then like a silver stone for their other eye. They don't really wear clothing. They wear straps and things like that for tools and implements. Kind of like a carry bag. But they don't wear clothing because they're stone person. And they don't have hair, but given the ability that I decided to pick, they have kind of like almost as if they did have hair, it would be long braids that go down their back, because that's what they felt like wearing that day.
That's great. What ability did you choose?
I chose Earthen Touch, so they can alter, carve, and sculpt any type of earth or stone as if it were semi-solid or fluid. And I really like the idea that they can do this. It's as aesthetic, that they do this on themselves sometimes to change their look or their appearance a little bit. Not obviously their form is being bipedal and average sized, about 6 foot tall. But they do it to change their, the hair or their facial features a little bit now and then.
I forgot to ask Spencer what your ability was.
There we go. I took adaptable. So I get a talent die whenever I have to confront a threat as a result of the natural elements.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Vivarian are pretty adaptable. That's true. All right, Lydia, do we have your concept?
We do, yes. I took the avian beast curse, so obviously, while there's no eye color or anything specified, I'm going with the general concept of a great horned owl. So the feathers and the eyes and things, more brown tones. She's tall. She definitely sticks out like a sore thumb. Totally not a self-insert. And for the ability, of course, it's the flying, but there's also the where is it? Part of the look of the bestial nature. One of them is night vision, which I took for the owl.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, this is our team. We need to know what their path is, though, and this is really where the nuts and bolts of the game happen. Culture is important for context. Heritage is important for cosmetics. This gives us the mechanics. So the different paths, which in other games we would call them classes, they're different than occupations, though. This is just sort of your overall path, the way that you approach the world. And when you advance in the game, you can choose additional paths. So you're not limited to this. It just means that you'll master this path before adopting a new one. And mechanically, what they do is they provide you with the way your character behaves, their background. It gives you sort of what you have. They also define your relationships with others, so your character's outlook is deeply related to their path. And then disciplines. And so the way disciplines work in this game is they're an extra set of dice that you can add to the modifier pool, a substantial addition. So you can use a 4, 6, or 8-sided die when you choose to use your discipline, or your discipline applies to a situation. And that means then you could have a potential +8 to a 20-sided die roll if you use your discipline. But then it's a currency, so you have to recharge that dice later. So that's where the real big difference happens on paths. I mean, that shows you really what the kinds of things you'll be doing, because everybody can do moves to affect the fiction, but the path will kind of require you to do a move in a particular way. An easy example is a magister. You're going to be using magic to handle situations, but some more less obvious ones would be like the Elfin, which is sort of a outcast of society. How they handle things are going to be with murder. Might be an example of something that they might do that's different than what, say, an Earthen would do. So it's really about how and why your character. It's not just what your character can do, but why. So there's a lot of machine work in there. And go ahead and stop talking and let you tell me what you're thinking in terms of paths. Well, before I stop talking, I'll say what the paths are. There's the Magister, which are the magic users, which is different than the Wicker. It's also kind of a magic user, but the Magister uses magic from tomes and runes, and sort of takes the formula of magic to affect the world, whereas Wicker will use charms, curses, and blessings. So I guess the difference between a wizard and a witch, if you want to look at it in simplistic terms. The Earthen are knights of honor. So these are warriors that have taken an oath to somebody or something, and that oath is more important than anything else. The Alten are outcasts, thieves, bandits. The Scopplers are storytellers. The Venerin are reverends. These are the holy people. Warren are warriors. And Wildkin are nomads, survivalists. So those are the paths. What are you thinking? Or do you have questions?
I'm thinking of being a sworder unicorn so that I can sword fight with my horn.
This is amazing.
And you also have telekinesis, so you could lob arrows too, as an archer.
It's either that or the knight, the Oathen.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying, making a paladin unicorn, maybe
That would be cool.
One or the other. That's what I'm debating right now.
I think I'm personally looking at Magister because I just see magic and I'm like, and just about any system, save for maybe Monster of the Week, I see magic and I'm like, gimme. So I think Magister is probably the one I'm leaning towards to most here.
That's what I always do too. I always grab that character.
Yeah. It's like magic. Even if it's cyberpunk, it's magic in a cyberpunk setting? Yeah. Sure, I'll take that. Why not?
I was debating between Wicca and Scoplar, and I think I'm gonna go with Scoplar. Just because I'm one of those warlock assholes all the time, constantly, and this seems to be, of course, the closest to that that the paths offer, and I'm of course immediately gravitating towards it because I can't fucking help myself. But no, I'm gonna be a nice person-ish. Maybe, I don't know. Sculptor.
I really, really love the Scoffler because it was taken out of the actual bardic tradition, and it's so exciting to see it in its sort of truest form rather than what it's become.
Yeah, I'm. Again, stop me if it's too much tour guiding, but the old Bards of the Isles in Scotland, the McMurray clan, that was a whole family of bards, basically. I love the idea of just the oration, the storytelling, and D&D bards are, at this point, a bit shoehorned, or not shoehorned, what's it called? When you
Pigeonhole?
kind of pigeonholed, thank you. That's exactly what I meant. So, yeah, I think this works quite well with her motivation and ideas.
I picked Wildkin. I really like the idea of the kind of nomadic lifestyle, but also working as, like, a lot of places they're used as diplomats, as people that forge trade routes. They're very useful for being nomadic, if that makes sense. And with my character's background of being a Holt, I really like the idea that they've been very nomadic a lot of their life, I guess would be the right word. And so going around being nomadic, they've had a lot of different jobs, a lot of different trades, a lot of different things they've done in places they've been that are stored in that deep, deep memory. And at the moment, they're just kind of embracing their more nomadic lifestyle, their more nature lifestyle. They don't need, I assume as Holton, they don't need like food or sleep or things that like normal people do. Normal people or, flesh and bone creatures need. So I really like the idea that my character can just walk through the woods and not have to worry about the elements, not have to worry about, being bitten by gross bugs or getting diseases. And if they need to stop and rest or look at something, they can just kind of sit there and do that. So I really like this idea.
Awesome. All right, so we have a Scoffler, we have a Wildkin. What else?
Magister for me.
Magister, okay. Oh, and Danny, you were thinking Othin.
I think I'm gonna go with Warren.
Warren, oh, okay.
Rather than the Elfin. I was debating between the two, but then I kind of looked at the questions and stuff like that with each of them. Like the background questions and stuff like that, and I kind of liked the Warren's questions a little bit more, and I kind of liked that like a little bit more than. So yeah, Warren.
Every path has a creed. This is sort of the ethical guideposts for your character. Now, it doesn't mean you won't ever break your creed. Well, if you're Othin, you probably shouldn't. But in general, it doesn't mean you're going to not break a creed, but it does give you sort of the ethical guidelines you have. So, for example, a Magister will not use magic to control another person's will. It would be something that a bad Magister would do, but not a good one, right? And there are three. So take note of your creed. There's also there's a section on culture for each path that sort of describes a little bit about how each culture handles or talks about or thinks about the paths. So using Magister, since I have it up here, the Stairborn have a long tradition of sages, and if you pass this massive rigorous test, you become a Reika, which is a elevated station in society. So that's what it says about Magister. So take a look at what your creed is, how the culture describes your creed. There's also a section in here about your background, your belongings, and just take note of what your answers are, and then I like to go around and go over them, so flesh out your character some more, or stone them out depending on who they are. And then we can ask each other relationship questions and sort of get an idea of how you are all connected. So it's kind of a lot to go through, not to cause some dead air, but just let me know when you're ready to talk this through.
I'm actually kind of ready to talk it through for
Great.
my character.
Please do.
So the Sturborn see wildkin as diplomats, but they're not welcome as nomads, and they're called Hemsu. So this also plays into what my character's kind of role in the Sturborn is as a junta, which is to track and capture and kill creatures, as well as being a forest warrior. So they're not so much a nomad within their territory as they are a tracker and hunter. I imagine it's kind of like a border guard, maybe, to a degree. They kind of keep an eye on what's going on in the edge of the safe territory of the Sturborn. So the first question is, what is your ideal natural environment? So I assume our kind of area is more forested.
Yeah, that's a good assumption. With
the giant tree. But I imagine my character also takes to, in the moment, they're comfortable in the forests and things, but I think they also take to mountainous regions, or that area of the forest when it meets large mountainous areas. Think of like kind of maybe the Pacific Northwest or Colorado, how you get the plains that meet mountains, but there's also up in like Washington or Canada, you get the areas where thick forests with tall trees kind of meet the mountains. I think that's my character's kind of ideal environment. It gives them a lot to work with as a Earthen Touch. If they, as they're hunting, they can kind of use that as a weapon. Stony environments and things. The question of how long you've been on this path and how were you brought into it? I'm kind of leaving that open-ended with how the Holton's memories work. I think my character is in it because it's comfortable for them. They enjoy it. They, definitely have an appreciation for nature and for being able to move around and experience new things, with the knowledge of, putting that in their memory, making memories, making new knowledge. So I like the idea that they don't really know why they're on this path or how they got into it. They just know that it's comfortable for them and they enjoy it. What about society causes you concern? I think with both being a Sturborn and a wildkin, they are in that kind of area between civilization and the wilderness. So they have a concern of the balance between civilization destroying the wilderness and destroying nature and dominating it too much and exploiting it, but also with the dangers of what can be out in the wilderness, what the corruption is. They are also very weary of nature being corrupted and becoming too dangerous. So they have this balance between respecting the environment when it comes to society, but also where the environment can become too dangerous to the point of where it will overwhelm and encroach civilizations. That slips into what about society do you believe is important and beneficial to the world? Society provides safety and harbor for people. Not everybody can live out in the wilderness. It's very dangerous. It's very tough to stay fed. It's very tough to stay warm, sheltered. My character as a whole doesn't have to worry about that, but they definitely do understand that other beings and creatures need that safety and need that, society, that companionship with other people, the trade, the culture. Those are all very important things of, protecting knowledge, protecting art, protecting culture and language. Second to last question, what societies have you worked with as a diplomat, soldier, or guide? Currently, I would say my character works in the Sturbaran Society as a hunter, which would probably be closest to a guide or a soldier. As for a diplomat, I feel like at some point they probably did come to the Sturbaran as a diplomat from another culture, and then eventually just came into that culture and kind of changed a little bit. But again, that's kind of back in their, deep memories that they don't quite have access to readily. So I'm kind of leaving that a little bit open-ended as well.
It's possible that they would have met with the Rishan as a diplomat.
Yeah, most likely it would have definitely been the Rishan. They probably have knowledge of other cultures out there, but it's probably been at least a century before they've made contact with anybody else other than the Sturbaran and the Rishan. So those are deep, far back memories that takes a while for them to access. And if I had to choose and where I call home, if it would be possible, I would say, since they don't really need the shelter and the things that most people do, I would say that while they come to the city or they are very outgoing, they're part of the Sturbaran, I would say probably somewhere they have a cave that they would call their closest facsimile to a home. Somewhere where they have privacy and they can kind of do their trade or whatever they have, their personal time alone. Because as a Holt and as a Earthen Touch, that's something that they could manipulate and create, a facsimile of a home for themselves without, disturbing anybody else, as you can't, take somebody's stone house and change it around without probably disturbing some people. But yeah. So I think that is all of those answers.
Awesome.
Questions.
I just realized this entire time I was streaming with audio from my laptop, so I'm sorry to everybody. I'm hooked onto the Yeti now. Nobody complained, so maybe it's fine. Cool. Thank you for that. That kind of gives a overall picture of this character. So when we get to relationships, you can help. Does anybody else want to talk through their background? I mean, you don't necessarily need to go point by point, but if just hit the high points, or if you do want to go point by point, that's cool too.
Yeah, I just had a moment because I was like, what is your talent and how does it translate into your role as cultural advisor and entertainer? And obviously you constantly think about the singing, the storytelling. I think my Sculptor's talent is listening. So it's not the here I am in the spotlight kind of bard. It's getting stories out of other people when they're not actually intending to tell their life story, when they don't realize they do it. But her way of being incredibly here for everyone's personal story, being incredibly attentive and kind of turning it around on them, allows her to get secrets, get information, has other people let their guard down when they didn't intend for that to happen. So it can be quite a useful thing, I think. But also works quite well for the rest of her ideas and motivation. So yeah, listening is the talent. Who nurtured this talent and what is their significance to you? I like to think that it's a very large family of avian beast cursed that are kind of a part of that court and have been for many generations. And she's a little bit of an, pardon the pun, ugly duckling at first. So that's where the listening talent developed, because all of her sisters and brothers were a bit more outgoing. But thinking it's a loving family. I don't want the whole rivalry thing, other than, you know, in a close kind of way. But yeah, that was nurtured by the family itself and by the court. Who in your past pushed you to your limit to become who you are? I'm not 100% sure there. I'm gonna pass on that question for now, because I'm not, like, obviously what I'm gravitating towards are the cliches, and I don't want that. So I don't want failed recital bullshit or something like that. But I'll have to think about that. Personal lifelong rival and why? I think these two questions could be connected, but I'm giving that another thought. What work or performance are you most famous for? Someone of the royal family who she didn't know was of the royal family, that she met either in a garden or in a sort of low key kind of situation, and got them to talk when she was a child. And then only later finding out who they were, but they have a soft spot for her. I'm thinking Mary Stuart, and what her father-in-law, the King of France, used to say, that he has better conversations with this 9-year-old child than with most women at the court. So kind of like that. And that has given her a new station when she was not exactly sure of whether this was the right career path for her. What social injustice drove you into service as a scuppler, and what do you hope to change about society? I wouldn't say social injustice at all. I would want that to be a family thing. It's more about what made her figure out what she wants to do with her abilities and what she wants to do with her position, and where that soul part, that focus on souls comes from. And I think, yeah, that's a lot to do with just who she is, with the beast cursed heritage. And what other talents do you have? I think she's been a bit of a loner and spent a lot of time flying, when for the others it was more utilitarian. So I think she's developed a very almost dance-like way of flying, and is quite skilled at it.
Awesome, that sounds great. Okay, so we have Spencer and Danny. Are you ready to take your turn?
Yeah, I can take mine. Why not? All right. I guess I'll just go point by point here, because that's how I did it here. What does your magic look like when you manifest it through tomes, power words, or runes? I like to think, because of the fact that this tree is called the Storm, the magic looks very weather-like in effect, whether it's through high gusts of wind, bolts of lightning, or etc., etc. That is what they look like. Who was the person who really unlocked your internal powers in your youth? I guess this would more depend on how many Reika are in this particular society. But I'd like to think that it was another Reika who saw potential magic power in my character. More in particularly, maybe the Reika that was sort of an outcast among the others. And they were kind of the one that, like, they passed the test, but nobody really liked them, sort of thing. How did you do how did you do during your training, and who helped you to succeed? My character did fairly well. There are some things he didn't get the hang of. Who helped me to succeed? Probably that same Reika who saw power in me. What does magic feel like to you when you use it? I like to think this is probably because of their training, but every time they use magic, there is sort of a slight pain whenever he uses it. Not enough to be crippling, but it is enough to be uncomfortable, and it is noticeable every time they use magic. Who was your adversary during training? Why did you have conflict, and what became of them? It was another young man who was training, who saw me as no mage because of the Reika who trained me. We got into a fight with magic, and Biskal ended up dying, and it was chalked up to a freak accident. There's something in my belongings that will sort of play into that later. What transformative moment happened in your past that set you on your path? This might be more stuff that is up to you, Chris, but I was thinking that my character, when wandering outside of their village, maybe found a god shard and absorbed some of its power on accident.
This is character creation, so if that's your character part, that's part of your character. Totally.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what disciplines are you most attracted to? Tones, power words, or runes? And I chose runes for it. And I'll go through belongings super quick. What did you inscribe your runes onto that you use when casting rune-based magic? He kind of has this multi-ringed stone compass sort of thing that he wears on his chest that he'll use. And that sort of doubles as his tome of magical spells, and the runes sort of have to be pressed in a certain order to cast certain spells. What magical artifact do you have, and what does it do? I was thinking about something along the lines of maybe like a magic Richter scale. So it goes off when a concentration of magic is close, but doesn't point out direction. And the way I thought about that in backstory was that essentially he took Biskal to a place where there was a high concentration of magic on purpose. And that was how that fight played out. And like my character, which I don't have a name for yet, basically straight up murdered this person and just chalked it up to an accident. Describe your home. It's a small wooden hovel, basically the equivalent of a 1-bedroom apartment. And describe my family and the loved ones I left behind. I imagined this character came from another culture, and I actually had it as a Rishan family, which plays in well with the Rishan that we have encountered. So he left behind a Rishan family and a mother, a father, and 2 sisters. Yeah, that is what I have planned so far for this character.
That's awesome. I love that you've given me some NPCs too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Danny, you are up.
All right. So I chose a Warren. So, basically a warrior that's been trained. And so the backgrounds here are: what is your most prized weapon and what makes it different? So since I'm an Equin and everything, and the Sturmborn, the culture that we've chosen are very much like in the, you kind of live on and everything like that, your spirit and like, all of that and their whole belief system. I thought what would be cool is if my character came from a family of Warrens, and what he has is a spear that's been made from the horns of past of his family. So it's this spear that he kind of, he's an Equin, so he has kind of like a, like a saddle, like a battle, whatever. And he kind of has a holster thing on the side for the spear. But it's made from the horns of like his ancestors and stuff that he uses. So who gave you this weapon and what is its significant? That kind of feeds into that. I'm going to kind of skip who in the past pushed you, who in the past you would destroy. I'm going to kind of think about those, or maybe y'all can. So what atrocity did you witness that compels you to live according to your creed? So this kind of goes also into the family. I'm thinking that my character witnessed some kind of raid of some kind. I'm not sure what kind of raid or who might have raided or whatever, but it was pretty atrocious. And when against all the creed that they have, don't hurt innocent people, talk before you use steel, etc., etc. It was just brutal and kind of went against all of that. And in that process, a pair of Equin colts were left orphaned. And so my character took them in and him and his partner, who's also a male equine. So yes, I have gay unicorn single sex parents of colts, of these twin colts that they've adopted because of this atrocity. They were left orphaned, you know. And maybe that's where, part of his family was. So part of his family was destroyed too. It was kind of a, an equine home or something that was raided and stuff. And so he fights for, the protects their culture, their people. Why? Because he kind of sees what, others have done if there is no protection. Prized possessions, home. I kind of described the family. So he has a partner, another equine, and they have their adopted colts. And apart from the weapons, name 3 items that are always on your person. It's kind of tradition in his family that when he goes away to do something, protect something, be a warren, he's called to go and do something. The twin colts and his partner will like braid like in his mane like little beads and stuff like that. It's like to carry his family into battle and things. And that's what I have so far.
That's great. Do you think the raid could have been a Seabeard raid?
Yeah, that would make sense. I was saying maybe somebody had some suggestions, like,
That could be, and I'm hearing from the Holt's favored background or location, and they're being coastal. I mean, this seems like maybe it's sort of like a Oregon coast sort of, temperate rainforest climate with lots of rocks and hills and cliffs and an ocean. Does that sound good to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of finally have some geography in our head, and see that's why Highcaster is our Highcaster. It's emergent.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have a few minutes left, so why don't we see if we can do it relatively quickly, but start asking some relationship questions. Everybody has a pretty good idea of everybody's characters at this point. I know we don't have names yet and some details, and that's fine. But you do have some prompts in there that you can use. You don't need to use these prompts if you just want to start establishing things unilaterally. That's cool. But the way the prompts work is that you just ask the question, and if somebody wants to answer it, then you have a relationship. Yay. There's no mechanical benefit to having a relationship. This is all just to bring out texture in the storytelling.
Mm-hmm. I'll throw out the first question because this seems fun. I'll ask the first question on here. Who needs to better understand my power and why?
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but your character is a little bit on the slightly edgier, darker side, right?
Just a tad. They aren't the sort of, like lone wolf who hates people. They're a little bit more, they hold back more than they probably should about their past.
Then I propose the following dynamic.
Okay.
Of this adorable owl creature constantly going, "Hi, how are you doing?" Asking why a lot. That applies to everyone. But I think she's fascinated by magic itself.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely wanting to understand pretty much how everything works. I think that could apply quite well to this particular relationship dynamic. It will most likely become annoying for you, and I'm here for it if you
Perfection. Are. I'm down.
How do you do that? Why did you do that? Can you set this on fire? What about that? Can you do that? Can you move that? Can you move that rock? Is it too heavy? When is it too heavy?
Yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah.
How's any others? Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the questions, there are quite a few, some I don't know. Some have an idea. This one's definitely one that I popped into my head. But who do I confide in when I need counsel? And at first I was leaning one way, but I decided with Danny's character. I feel that with his oath and his kind of, moral compass of, defending, as well as his background, the fact that he has a family, I think that would definitely add to my character. Because my character is definitely a lone wolf to a degree. Not that they don't make friends or they can't make friends. It's more of like they don't have the familial ties that most people would have to a certain degree. They don't have offspring. They don't really have biological families. They don't really have that kind of society at all as a whole. In their memories going so far back, I'm sure they probably have a lot of different chosen family and a lot of different relationships, but they don't have those immediately there to remember. They're archived. So I feel like with Danny's character, when they have, questions on, how, helping make, needing help making friends, needing help understanding certain social cues or certain things that they might not be very good at, or relationships or things like that, they would probably ask Danny's character. Whether or not Danny's character appreciates that or understands why, my character just does.
That's cool with me.
And I feel like they've probably fought together as well at some point.
Probably.
So they probably have that. If
your character is like a soldier type and has done that, then probably for sure at some point they've,
Yeah.
There's a good chance you've all been on major national expeditions before. I mean, you are the heroes of the realm, so it's not. You definitely would have been together in some sort of situation.
So I feel like they probably have some kind of friendship there, if you're good with that.
Totally.
Are there any other relationship questions you'd like to ask?
I have one that I want to use to connect myself to Rex's character, which is who has a natural magical power of which they may not be aware. I think he sees a lot of fascination with the fact that there is a person made of stone who has basically lived forever. And I'm not sure if my character believes that there is natural magic power in Rex's character, but it's more like the whole, like, how have you lived so long? There has to be some magic in that, right? It'll probably annoy you a lot about that whenever you're even remotely close to where he is.
Yeah. And I really like that because that works in with one of my possessions that my character's home. Okay. I'm not going to reveal that because that will come when it is narratively appropriate, but I have a really fun idea that, oh God, I can't talk about it. I'm too excited, but if I even, I have to have some self-control. So yes, I am here for that. And I'm here for the fact that like my character probably just like shrugs it off all the time because it doesn't occur to them to care. It's just how things are. Like your character's probably like, you're literally a walking archive of like lifetimes. I imagine my character has probably also been alive or created since before the fall. So that would probably absolutely drive your character nuts. Probably also Lydia's character, that my character's just like, no, I'm not going to remember that. Like, I got other things to do. Like,
It's that his fascination would lean more towards like that whole like how teenagers will look at anybody above the age of like 24 and be like, whoa, you're old. Like it'll be that kind of dynamic. It's like, you live forever, you're basically dust. How?
I imagine my character just as like you say basically dust, and I imagine that my character has to like, I don't know if they grow or how any of their magical functions, or if they don't have biological functions, but I do imagine that they do have like slightly dusty skin after a while if they sit too long or if they don't wash, that they just get this little like dusty sheen. So when you say like you're dust, it's like my character's just like, yeah.
That, I feel like that's become his nickname for you. Like he just
See?
calls
I like it.
Dust. You've told him your name multiple times, but to him it's just Dust.
Well, their name is that they like tell people because they've had probably hundreds of names over time. The one that they refer to themselves to the most is Stein, which is literally Norwegian for stone. So
German
dust.
too.
Yeah, so it's like dust, stone. That works.
Awesome. Well, I think we're coming into our time, but are there any other questions that you want to ask each other to set up more relationships? And we do have some triangles happening, but we can put more.
I've got one that could be interesting.
Go for it.
Who believes my talent isn't what I profess? Or even who has a creed that will ultimately come into conflict with mine? Do we want any potential conflict is probably a question that should be asked first. Because I know some people don't like it in a party, some people really do. If that sparked any inspiration, I'm here for it.
Oh.
And as you're answering, quote unquote PvP in this system is just narrative drama. There isn't any, like you don't lose characters, you don't die unless you choose to kill them. So there's none of this like min-maxing to clobber somebody. Anything that happens is all going to be narrative.
Mm-hmm.
What's your creed? What's the creed for your?
My creed is. We use our talents to serve society, speak the truth within our art, and educate as well as entertain.
That would really come in conflict with mine too much.
I think it would be interesting. The fact that you asked me about magic so much, I think, because essentially, I don't want to bring too many cultural things, but a scopeler is basically like an equivalent of a shaman almost. They sort of communicate with spirits.
No, that's more bardy.
Okay.
That was the Wicker you were thinking of, perhaps. But
oh, okay.
I went with storyteller, bard.
They're the
chronicler.
Yeah, the chroniclers are the historians of the age, and they do that through storytelling.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
If none of these questions spark anything, that's fine. Like that's just purely is this something that works? We also have who needs my advice but will not admit it. Don't listen to her advice. She has none. I mean, she has advice. It's bad advice. It will probably get you in trouble. And who do I confide in when I need counsel? Who's a promising entertainer who could use my training? Not sure that works, really.
I do feel like your character and my character might have an appreciation for stories that they share.
Yeah. I think.
I mean, I was just gonna say these questions say ask the heroes any or all. So I mean they're there, but it doesn't mean If
Rex, if you want, we could kind of almost lean into the who is a promising entertainer who could use my training. Not that I'm actively going to try and train you, but the idea that your character has lived for so very long and holds so much knowledge they don't bother to access would probably drive her a bit mad. Like,
and they would probably suck at describing it too. Like if they had to describe a memory, it would probably be very analytical.
Oh yeah.
And it
Like,
would
if
not be if they were like, can you describe this city that was destroyed that you've visited? Be like, well, the arches are mostly at 45-degree angles. That's a common thing in there. And like da 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 da, and like describing the architecture, and you just be like, no, stop, please, God.
It would be especially
I feel
frustrating
like-
because you're trying to get to the bottom of what happens to souls, and that there was a
Mhm.
big change in the cataclysm, and he probably knows about it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe because of the way I'm set up with Rex too, is Lydia's character and mine might barrage him constantly about certain things. And that's the point where we sometimes get along. It's like we're both so annoyed that he's so vague. Sorry, they are so vague about everything they talk about. It's just like, why? Why can't they just be elaborate? Why do they have to give like just the pure analytical things about it?
If they even do.
Well, I think we have some amazing stuff, and we can do more relationship building emergently. And I'm really excited about this because this is the fantasy RPG I would like to play, where it just is so completely ours and no one else's. And I can't wait to see what happens with the actual game. So thank you for putting your brains on this and making it blossom like this. So it's awesome, really cool. And I have a lot to think about and build. So I will do that. And then we will meet in 2 weeks, and we'll get started. So we have for this group, feel free to use the Discord to flesh things out further. You'll need to complete your character sheets. For the audience, I will post those sheets so that you can see them and then play along. But I think that's probably about it. Do you have any final thoughts?
I'm really excited for this. I really like the narrative tone that it has. It's just like you said, it's definitely one of those RPGs, like the fantasy RPG that you want to play. I feel like it just fits very well for a lot of different types of stories that you can tell, and for what we're building here, I'm very, very excited for it.
Same. I can absolutely see that this playground is vast and catering to so many different ideas and so many different genres, even within the vastness that is fantasy these days. And just looking at the characters, if we put them into a different culture, this would have turned out completely different. If this was different heritages, they're all giving you a lot of options, and it's not limiting as the classic races usually are. I like that. Looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, me too. Cool. Thank you, everyone. I'm really excited. We will pick this up in a couple of weeks. I'm going to go ahead and close out. I don't really have any fancy closing statements because I haven't really done a stream before. So maybe one day I'll put up a script and say blah, blah, blah. But for now, that's it. I'm going to stop recording. So long.